Time now to check in with Nick Day, Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good. So some big news yesterday. The CFTC, the Commodities Futures and Trading Commission, fining crypto betting service Polymarket $1.4 million for having unregistered swaps. What's going on? What's the implications of this?
Yeah, so this came out first enforcement action of the year for a federal U.S. regulator, but the CFTC claims that Polymarket offered unregistered binary contracts, basically. And in order to do so legally in the U.S., you have to be registered as a swap execution facility and have a designation as a designated contract market, neither of which Polymarket had. So Polymarket has now been asked to pay the fine and wind down some of its markets ahead of a deadline imposed by the CFTC and allow customers to recoup all of their funds. And this is all going to happen by January 14th. And by January 24th, the CFTC is going to take a look and see if Polymarket's in full compliance. And Polymarket itself, in a statement, said that they will have more information about the future of the company and its markets in the near future, I guess. But the broader implication here is the CFTC explicitly called out some of the DeFi elements of Polymarket, but also some of the centralized elements of this DeFi product. So, for example, noted that Polymarket users basically had to use the Polymarket website. They couldn't go onto another platform and access the market. So there was a hint of centralization there. And the CFTC also just, in the order itself, they took a look at the actual technical aspects of how Polymarket operated, how long it's been operating, how people could how people could trade these contracts and make bets on who's going to win, and this really does feel like a kind of precursor for a lot of other companies in the space, right? A lot of enforcement actions, they're kind of pretty blatantly focused on a single company and what that company did, but this does feel like it's applicable to some of the other prediction markets for sure, and possibly even some of the other DeFi companies out there.
Nick, turning to a totally different topic for a moment. Recently, we learned that Mexico is going to be issuing a central bank digital currency by 2024. In your opinion, do you think Mexico is going to do this before the U.S. does?
If Mexico is actually committed to this, then probably, to be honest. My view on the U.S.'s central bank digital currency efforts is that it's looking at this as kind of like that's a kind of cool idea to look into, but it doesn't seem like the Federal Reserve is currently looking at a central bank digital currency as something it must have or even something that it needs right now. And, we've heard about research projects going on since 2018, 2019, but at the moment, it does kind of feel like the CBDCs are just, very cool idea, maybe, perhaps, possibly. So if Mexico's committed to this and it actually plans to launch one, then yeah, I think it's going to happen before the US.
So Nick, do you think that this change in, getting back to the whole CFTC action, do you think that it's sort of a change in tone in general from the CFTC from what it was under the previous administration, or is it sort of in line with its view that it should have a bigger say in the crypto markets in general?
No, I think this is consistent with past CFTC actions, and even more so, a lot of the past CFTC actions have been kind of focused on crypto spot markets, but here this is pretty clearly looking at what appears to be a derivative product within the U.S. So I would argue this is even more in line with how the CFTC has operated over the last couple of years than, for example, some of its actions against Coinbase, as just one example. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the CFTC is looking to have a bigger role in regulating crypto spot markets, but that does feel different from yesterday's enforcement action.